Good evening, everybody. It is September 30th, 2019. This is Post Raw number 54. I am Mike Tedesco, the editor-in-chief of Wrestleview.com. Flying solo because pregnancy. No more Victoria on the show for a little bit. We had her goodbye show last week, but I assure you she will be back. She might even be in the chat room tonight, hanging out with you all. But for now, she is just too pregnant, too uncomfortable to kind of get through these shows now. We're literally 2 weeks from today is the due date. So we're very, very close to the end of the line with this whole entire expecting phase of the pregnancy. And we're excited to get this underway. Victoria is, I just wouldn't want to put her through having to watch Raw while being pregnant anymore. You know, it's already uncomfortable enough being pregnant, and then have to watch Raw, especially what they put out tonight for the season premiere. It might be a little too much to bear. All right, let's say hi to everybody in the chat room before we get started reviewing Raw, because I'm actually kind of excited to talk about it. Really more excited to talk about what's going on for the week of wrestling, more than even just talking about this Raw here. Okay, so let's say hello. Oh, Quentin Walters, even though he said he wasn't going to be here, he is in the chat room tonight. Our number one fan, along with Billy Hefner, of course. Billy Hefner is our other number one fan, of course. Nafis Sadat is here. Randy M, we got him in the chat room tonight. We have Daniel Scheel, emphasis on the heel, in the chat room with us as well. Mashoon Walls. If I haven't said your name yet, if I'm skipping over somebody, please let me know, and I will make sure to say hello to you tonight. But gosh, let's talk about this season premiere of Raw. I have to say, when they announced premiere week last week, and they kind of just laid out what was going on. Oh, Kit Dyson in the chat room, hello Kit. When they kind of laid out what was going on, I was like, man, I was really excited. Last week they kind of announced that, hey, we have some new commentators. We have a whole bunch of stuff changing up. We're going to change the sets. We got Pyro coming back. I'm like, maybe this is the shot in the arm that WWE really needed. Something to kind of put a hard reset on some storylines, just kind of change the feel of the shows. One big thing that they did get rid of that I have to say was such a great move was getting rid of the stinking heel authority figure. That's gone. At least on Raw. I think they're going to officially close it off, I hope, on SmackDown on Friday with the ladder match with Kevin Owens and Shane McMahon. That should be the end of the heel authority figure for quite some time. But I thought, we're going to get back to kind of like the roots of wrestling, kind of like just get us back to something where, it just kind of feels like less of just like this like goofy show that's just kind of thrown together last minute all the time. And I don't know if tonight was it. I don't know if the answer is tonight was just kind of like, yeah, we're going to give you some stuff. And don't get me wrong, there was some really good stuff on the show, but there was also some pretty bad stuff on the show as well. We'll just give you some stuff to hold you over until the WWE draft, and then we'll do the real big reset of everything. SmackDown will close off all of the loose end storylines. We'll close off the Kevin Owens, Shane McMahon thing. We'll close off, whatever. We'll reset the title picture with Kofi Kingston and Brock Lesnar. And just change up the feel of the show. We'll see. We'll see if that's the case. But right now, if this is like the best that they have, if this is the best ideas that they have for the fall going forward, for at least for Monday Night Raw, it's really honestly no different than anything else that they've done all year, and nothing to really get you excited about. That's for sure. We'll talk about it, of course. I have to say, so they did give the show an updated look. They gave it a kind of a fresh or fresh-ish feel. The stage, which I know some people weren't big fans of, it is what it is. Like you can't have everything. Like if you're gonna complain about the look of the stage, that's like, come on now. Like really, we're gonna get that petty. I thought the stage was okay. It was a little bit of a change from what we normally see. Like, really, the only thing that's really different about the stage is that they got rid of all the hard edges of like a stage. They're making it look so kind of boxy, and kind of gave us like this kind of sleek looking thing with some curvatures there. I thought it was okay. I thought it was pretty darn good. The pyro's back, which kind of gives it like more of a big show feel, at least for a little bit. You know, everybody had their pyro, or at least had pyro added to their entrance. Like Alexa Bliss had pyro all of a sudden. I'm like, okay, Alexa Bliss. I did like when Becky Lynch came out for commentary and she said, "Oh, the man's got her steam back." I was like, "Oh yeah, sure you do." That's a cute little line that she got off there. The commentary team though, Vic Joseph, Dio Madden, which was really just out of nowhere, just started commentating on 205 Live a month ago, and now he's on Raw. And Jerry the King Lawler. That's the big that's probably the biggest change they made tonight was commentary. No more Michael Cole, Corey Graves, and Renee Young. That Corey Graves and Michael Cole are on SmackDown, and Renee Young is now listed as a special contributor, whatever that means, on SmackDown. They changed up the whole entire sound of Raw, the feel of it, but every now and then I caught like Vic Joseph just sounded so much like Michael Cole. It just didn't really seem like I was listening to anything truly different. Dio Madden, yeah, that's a pick totally out of left field, and I totally support that. That's really, really good. I don't know if he's 100% prepared for it, and it's something that he's just going to grow into, but you know, that's kind of like what they did with Renee Young. I know a lot of people had issues with Jerry the King Lawler coming back. Lawler is turning 70, I believe, next month. I believe Jerry Lawler is turning 70 next month. Why did they bring him back? Obviously, if you listen to commentary tonight, you know exactly why they brought Jerry the King Lawler back. You need a guy like Jerry Lawler to guide this really, really young, really inexperienced commentary team of Raw. At least get them started. You know, I don't know if Jerry Lawler is the forever solution here. I highly doubt it. I think Jerry Lawler, I don't know if he'll be there in 6 months. I do not think maybe he'll make it to WrestleMania, but I don't think much further than that. I would think that they would shake up that commentary team again. But Jerry Lawler at least gets them started, at least gets them talking, saves them when they kind of lose their footing a little bit. Jerry Lawler, for the most part, was pretty good. In fact, I thought he was actually the best of the three. Of course he would be because he has the most experience of them. Came up with some pretty good lines, you know, tried to get people involved in talking. Vic Joseph was, just your regular WWE play-by-play guy. I would much rather have preferred Tom Phillips, who I thought, talk about like there are some things that happened, with these shakeups. Michael Cole and Corey Graves moved to SmackDown, which is fine. I actually like a 2-man group. I think the 2-man tables are way better than 3 people trying to fit in their lines. But unfortunately, and I'm glad Byron Saxton, that's over. That just move on from that. That was just a disaster from day one. Never good. Never improved, just was always there. Tom Phillips, though, really grew into that play-by-play role on SmackDown. And he was doing, I liked listening to SmackDown because he had a different, tenor to his voice than Michael Cole does. Vic Joseph sounds like Michael Cole light, where Tom Phillips at least had his own kind of, range and just sounded, it was just a fresh feel. And now that guy's sitting on the sidelines. They don't even know what they're doing with him right now. Last I heard was that he's going to be involved in producing more, which basically means, we're going to keep him around and then he's just going to leave. That sucks for a guy that really, honestly, did an amazing job covering SmackDown. Really, really great job. He deserves a lot better than that. He really, honestly does. What say you in the chat room? What did you think of the commentary team tonight? Oh boy, I don't know where this is. I don't know if I'm just leaving this, if I'm just reading this like out of nowhere, just totally out of context. But Daniel Shell just has a comment that just says, "Just leave him at the strip club." I don't know what that means. Could be talking about Jerry Lawler though. Randy M. Commentary had zero chemistry. I have to agree. That they had zero chemistry. Wasn't very good. Tom was underrated in my opinion. Was from Daniel Shell. Nafis Sadat says Tom was definitely good. I can only think of Mauro Ranallo being a more fitting play-by-play. Yeah, Mauro Ranallo could be, but you know what? Now that NXT's on USA Network, you need Mauro Ranallo there. He has kind of become that voice of NXT. Can't really do the show without it. It's almost like you can't just do the show without him. You need him there. Daniel Shell goes, could be worse. David Otunga, it always could be worse. You are 100% right. Billy says it was fine. Yeah, I just didn't really feel much. I need to see them grow a little more, I suppose. We'll see what happens with the commentary team. All right. Well, we talked about the production of the show. Let's talk about the show itself. So the show opens up with our brand new stage. Our commentary team welcomes us to the show, and then all of a sudden we have Rey Mysterio coming out, and Jerry Lawler says, "Oh, I guess we're opening up with the Universal title match." I was like, "Oh, great. Okay, so we're going to start off the show with a match. That's always a good idea in wrestling." Instead, it's Rey Mysterio coming out. They show Dominic at ringside, and believe me, this was way, way better than any Universal Championship match could have been with Seth Rollins and Rey Mysterio. Even though I think they would have had a great match, it still would have had the same finish with The Fiend coming out at the end and interrupting it and no finish and the typical WWE non-finish crap. This one had Rey Mysterio pointing at his son. He's like, "Look, I wouldn't have this match without you," and da-da-da-da-da. And all of a sudden, Brock Lesnar interrupts him, and this was just where it just got amazing. Absolutely amazing. Brock Lesnar comes out, just grabs Mysterio, or actually at first, Paul Lesnar rips the microphone out of Mysterio's hands, gives it to Heyman. Mysterio rips the microphone out of Heyman's hand and takes it back. So Lesnar drops him with an F5, stands over him, drops him with another F5, and I'm like, okay, well, this is pretty cool. And he looks at Dominic, and I actually totally forgot that Dominic was at ringside for a second, and I was like, no, they're not gonna bring Dominic in here now, little Dominic. And Lesnar looks at him, and I gotta say, for all those people that say, Lesnar hates pro wrestling, doesn't know what he's doing anymore, doesn't belong, this guy knows pro wrestling, and he knows how to draw out a moment. He really does. Like, he played his role perfectly tonight. Absolutely perfect. Looks at Dominic, thinks about it, turns around, comes back, thinks about it again, and then he goes outside. Dominic, to his credit, did... I harped on him a few weeks ago for saying that promo that he did with Mysterio backstage when Mysterio was faking retirement and then Dominic convinced him to stay. I thought he was a little stiff there and the acting wasn't good. The acting was great here tonight. Absolutely great. Maybe because he actually was legitimately afraid of Brock Lesnar. I would be. Even knowing that you're going to be in a scripted, storyline, what's happening. It's not, you're going to get physical with Brock Lesnar. It's going to hurt. But man, you can be like, there's taking bumps in the ring and then there's taking bumps. And Brock Lesnar gives you the latter kind of bumps. He'll slam you around. He cowered, sat down in the chair, and I was like, okay, good move. Okay, I guess they're going to kind of tease that out or kind of like, make it. I figured that they'd have him sit down and then Dominic would try to attack him from behind to try to save his father and then ultimately get destroyed. They did even better. They just made Brock Lesnar into a complete maniac, pull him over. Oh, you got to see, you got to watch the gif of him pulling him over the barricade because this was, I didn't put it in here. Damn it. Because he just ripped him over the barricade and just slammed him on his upper back right near his neck. I was like, damn, that was intense. That was really, really intense. And then he grabs Dominic, nearly loses him. This one I do have a gif of, and I will definitely show you. Oh, if I can get my OBS to work, which never works. There we go. Grabs Dominic, lifts him up, nearly loses him, recovers, and slams him right in the thing. And then he scoop slams him on the floor. Oh my God, I could watch that over and over again. Just Dominic was just getting annihilated. So I guess if you're going to get the fast track to the main roster because you're Rey Mysterio's little boy, you got to pay your dues. And tonight, Dominic Mysterio definitely paid his dues in a big way. Lesnar gets him in the ring, gives him German suplex, stands over him. Rey Mysterio is crying. Really great job. I'm sure it didn't really take much acting to do that. Watching your kid just get trashed, and in the bad way, not watching your kid get drunk or something like that. But he tried to go for Lesnar's leg. Lesnar grabs him again, hits him with a third F5. Heyman's shouting. The whole thing is it's one of those awesome Brock Lesnar segments. And I was like, wow, they start off the show with this. Lesnar leaves the ring, he goes back, and then he just grabs Mysterio again, suplexes him, gives Dominic another suplex, and then they finally wind up leaving the ring. And then he goes back again, kicks Finley, kicks another agent out, and throws Dominic out of the ring. He at first looks conflicted, and then he finally just is like, screw it. I'm pretty happy with what I did. Rips off his shirt, the crowd calling him an asshole, poses for the crowd. This was just perfection. And it sets up so nicely, like Brock Lesnar looks like an absolute maniac going into the SmackDown premiere on Friday, which really, that's the big show. That's the most important show you got to build up this week. Really not the season premiere of Raw, which is hard to call a season premiere if the season never ends. But this was supposed to be, something to set up WWE premiere week. So I guess, you also don't want it to be so good that SmackDown pales in comparison. So, hey, this was an awesome segment. I was like, God, if they're starting off the show with this, what do they have planned for the rest of the night? Well, the answer to that was not much. Really not much. Well, let's continue to talk about the big things that happened on the show. So that directly had something to do with the main event, because the main event was supposed to be Seth Rollins and Rey Mysterio taking on what am I talking about? Seth Rollins taking on Rey Mysterio with the Universal Championship on the line, but Mysterio went to the hospital with Dominic, so that match was canceled. Rollins challenged anybody to step up and go for the title. That person wound up being Rusev. We'll talk a little more about how Rusev came involved, but the match itself, not much of a match with Rollins and Rusev. I think we all knew where this was going with, the Fiend coming out, attacking, interfering, just like it happened last week, just like it happened the week before. Rollins, 2 weeks ago was fighting off a bunch of people. Kane made the save, and then the Fiend came out, attacked Kane. Last week it was Rollins and Braun Strowman having actually a pretty darn good match, and then the Fiend came in and attacked Strowman. Yep. And this week now he attacks Seth Rollins. So I don't know what that means for Hell in a Cell on Sunday. Typical booking says if the person who's left laying usually winds up winning. I cannot see any instance. I cannot see any scenario where the Fiend doesn't wind up with the Universal Championship. I saw a couple complaints on Twitter tonight. Of course, the harbinger of complaining is done on Twitter. That is just like where everybody goes to just bitch and moan about everything. I hardly ever see anything positive on Twitter. They say the Fiend is getting overexposed. God forbid you want to take a guy and use him to promote the main event of your pay-per-view, which is on Sunday. Oh yeah, the Fiend is overexposed. Well, okay, fine. So the Fiend has been on the show every single week, attacking people, laying them out, this and that. Fine. You can make that argument. Maybe I could even kind of agree with that argument. But after he wins the title, I think you show the Fiend the next night on Raw, and then he kind of disappears. We've done this show many, many times without a championship on it before, so we can kind of go with the Fiend not having to be on every single show. That I can agree with. If he's on too much, that character will get overexposed. And this character is way too good to be overexposed. We can't have that happen. Let's say everybody in the chat. Oh, Victoria's in the chat room, so everybody's going crazy right now. Okay. She is on there. Yeah. Yes. Daniel Shell, bring in Victoria and Mercy. Mike is bombing bad. Yeah. Give me a break, Daniel. But yeah, we definitely need, we could at least use Mercy on the show. That much I know. Yeah, everybody's kind of excited for us to have the baby. Yeah, I'm kind of excited too, I gotta say. I'm not kind of excited. I'm really excited. kind of scared, but gotta say I'm pretty excited. Also, what happened during this main event was Bobby Lashley made his return. So before we went for the main event, a limousine pulled up, and I'm like, oh, who's in the limousine? I'm kind of interested. Wound up being Bobby Lashley, who brought out Lana, and they embraced and kissed on the stage while Rusev just watched doing nothing like a total cuck. So now we have 2 cucks in WWE, Mike Kanellis and Rusev. We can have a tag team of cuckolds. Perfect. Awesome. That gets me so pumped up. And that's where I was just like, wow, that's the big idea for the fall. This is what Raw is going to be now. Raw is going to be the Maury show. Holy crap. I was watching this and I was just like, you can't be serious. You can't be serious. We did the Rusev Lana thing with Dolph Ziggler that did nobody any favors. Now we're trying to revisit it 4 years later, and guess what? It's going to suck just as much as before. I'm sorry. I can't, I can accept the 24/7 stuff. I think everybody knows when they debuted the 24/7 title, I was not a happy camper. I have to admit, I was wrong. For at least a little while, the 24/7 championship was one of the more entertaining things on the show. But they backed off of it. In fact, the 24/7 title wasn't even on the show tonight. They've been using it in less and less segments. Carmella is the champion now. I'm sure they'll do something on SmackDown with it. But I can accept that. I can totally admit I was wrong on that and live with it. It's not my cup of tea, but if I'll give it a chance. But these love triangle things, like this crappy, legitimate soap opera garbage, that's just maybe I'm the wrong demographic for WWE anymore. I don't know because that I can agree with the echo chamber on Twitter of people just being miserable, because that stinks. I'm sorry. There's just no other way to put it. It's just not what I want to watch with wrestling. It just isn't. And honestly, you look around, you ask around, the crowd was just, they weren't really into it. So you have, people who are regular fans being there with hardcore fans, and no one's reacting. So there's that. So I guess that means, they don't really care about it, or they've seen it enough times to say crap, I don't want to see this again. And you have people on Twitter that are also revolting against it. So it's not just the people on Twitter. There's people in the crowd that also don't like it. I'm sorry. It's just not my thing. And I don't know how everybody feels in the chat room about it. Yeah, Michonne Wall says it's a Jerry Springer segment. Randy M says it was trash. I agree. I guess maybe I'm the wrong demographic. I don't know what they're going for. I don't know who they're trying to target with stuff like this, but it's just not. It's not for me. And if that's the best that Paul Heyman can come up with after starting up the show so hot, and then we end with Bobby Lashley and Lana making out, and then a quick Fiend run in, I'm like, no, I don't want to watch weeks of Raw with that stuff. So hopefully, once the draft hits, this whole thing is just washed away. I really, really hope so. I have a feeling it absolutely won't be, but one can hope. I'm kind of like, what do they call it? The Alzheimer's patient in a whorehouse where you keep getting screwed and you don't know why. I went into this whole entire thing thinking they're going to do a hard reset, and at the end of the night, of course, I was left feeling a little disappointed. But again, just like when they teased the Money in the Bank cash-ins 3 times and didn't follow through on it on Raw early this year, I will still hold out hope that it's going to get better. I'll hold out hope for the WWE draft, because this storyline just makes absolutely no sense, especially when Maria Kanellis literally earlier in the show said Rusev's not the father. So what are we doing here? She even said Rusev's not the father. So why is Lana mad at him? Why, what is going on here? There's just, it's a joke. It's a total joke. Anyway, let's get back to reviewing this show. That main event was just, you thought you were going to get a good Universal title match. That was not there. Okay. Now the third biggest thing that happened on the show The Miz TV segment with Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair. Everybody was like, why are they doing this? What is going on? It's like every time they bring a legend back on these shows, it always, like, something stupid always winds up happening. Like, like I've seen them do Hall of Fame round tables where they talk about some main event that means absolutely nothing to anything. They're trying to talk about it like it's the biggest thing on earth. I thought they were going to try to build up the Hell in a Cell matches for Sunday. Instead, we get this like really, really wacky, weird segment with Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair, both insanely off their games. Ric Flair, there's something wrong with this guy. Okay? Like, he had the heart surgery a couple months ago. He made those like really weird YouTube videos just going off on his lawyer, and he wound up getting sued because of it, getting sued for slander. Just cutting promos on Jim Ross and Shawn Michaels. Like, who let him do that? Obviously, he was still coming off like whatever drugs and medications. He was on like hardcore painkillers, I'm sure, and was just loopy. And they let him take a video camera and start recording himself and cut some really strange promos. He's suing WWE right now over the use of the man catchphrase. Like, what is going on here? Ric Flair comes out tonight. He's talking over the Miz when the Miz is supposed to have his line, which that's the problem with scripted promos. And you put a guy like out there like that really isn't used to doing scripted promos. Ric Flair, obviously one of the best promos that in wrestling history. You can't script that. You can't script that guy. But he had, it's like in WWE, you got to do your thing, wait your turn, and then you do your thing, they wait their turn, and then it goes back and forth. There's no organic, back and forth here. So Ric Flair used to organic back and forth, was running over the Miz, and then all of a sudden it's like the initiative came out where it's like, okay, we can't let Flair talk anymore. So in the middle of the segment, it seemed like they decided we're not going to let Rick talk anymore. So they started having people go over him, or they started playing music over him. So the big thing was Flair out of nowhere, and I couldn't understand where it was going because Flair was like so out of it. He was talking about how he's tired of Hulk Hogan's music, has had enough, wants to have checks with as many zeros on it as Hogan has. I'm like, when the hell's the last time Hogan made a major league check? It's over 15 years ago at least, probably SummerSlam 2005 or 2006. That's got to be it. Like, what do we do? Like, what are you talking about here? Like, why is this a thing? Not built up well at all. Miz is just like, hey, I'm really excited to be here, and just with these two legends, it's like, give me a sec. If I'm going to keep doing this, I might have to steal Doug's gimmick and start using some sources myself here. It's tough to talk by yourself. Voice getting all raspy already. And then it wound up, Ric Flair takes off his jacket, wants to fight Hulk Hogan. Jimmy Hart is just there, just being there. I don't know what his purpose was. He did absolutely nothing. He was just there in the background. He's just Hogan's friend and just tags along with him, I guess. And then the Miz says, oh, I have a big announcement. So, like, why didn't you start it off with saying that there's a big announcement tonight? We're doing Hulk Hogan versus Ric Flair, but not the way you think. We're doing Hogan is going to captain a team of 5 people versus Ric Flair's team of 5 people at Crown Jewel in Saudi Arabia. And that just died before the crowd. Everybody started booing. No one was excited about it. Flair and Hogan had to pretend to be excited. Initially, I thought Miz was going to say, we're going to have one last go of it with Hogan and Flair, and they were going to do it at Saudi Arabia. I was like, oh my God, well, all of a sudden, Undertaker versus Goldberg doesn't sound so bad anymore. Holy crap. No, but we're doing this 5-on-5 thing instead a couple weeks before Survivor Series. So, wow, that sounds really, really exciting. They had Seth Rollins come out and be the team captain for Hogan. So, you talk about people worrying about The Fiend being overexposed. Seth Rollins was all over this show tonight in a lot of segments. And Randy Orton, so Ric Flair is going to go introduce Randy Orton, and they just play Randy Orton's music. They don't even let Ric Flair introduce him now, and Ric Flair's just like, okay. And Orton comes out and challenges Seth Rollins to a captain's match. So they announced that Rey Mysterio wasn't going to be on the show, and it wasn't going to be in the match anymore, and Rollins was going to have somebody step up and challenge for the Universal title. Well, I guess Randy Orton doesn't care about the Universal title because they were just going to do a regular match straight up. no title on the line, even though Seth Rollins was offering it to anybody who would step up. So it's just the continuity, the whole everything about this segment was just brutal. They send out King Corbin to beat up Rollins, and then Rusev, who wound up being Seth Rollins' opponent tonight, steps up and helps Rollins, and Rusev then says that Rollins owes him one. That's why they get a title match. But Randy Orton had a chance. Seth Rollins immediately accepted the match. They had a referee go out there. They were getting ready to do the match, and then King Corbin came down and interfered. But Randy Orton could have had a title match. Like, it's just so stupid. It just makes it like there's no continuity here. There's no standards. It's just it just is. They just do things. There was no thought put into this at all. My God, it just brutal. Victoria in the chat room. Whoever was cheering for a brawl, the tease between Flair and Hogan, I feel sorry for you. Ouch. Yeah, and then there's Daniel Schell, who's been riding me all night, saying that he was kind of looking forward to this. So yeah, okay, there we go. Quentin Walters, Jurassic Park versus the One Horseman. Yeah, not exciting. I don't know. That's the best idea they have for Saudi Arabia. It's going to be another tremendous Saudi Arabia show. Man, I can't wait to see that. Can't wait to take a piece of my Halloween out to recap that show. I think this will be the first Saudi Arabia show that I sit out of. It's just not worth it to recap those shows anymore. They are just so abysmally bad. And I like, if this is the best idea they have for it, you know that the idea is bad when TNA one-ups you on Twitter. TNA goes, yeah, that was a good match. And then they show something from Lethal Lockdown with Team Hogan versus Team Flair saying like, hey, we did it first and probably did it better. So there's that. If Impact can kind of turn their nose at you, that's rough. That's really, really rough. Okay. Moving on that one. Let's do some quick hits on the show tonight because there's really not much else big coming out of the show to talk about. Let's go right straight down the line here. Sasha Banks versus Alexa Bliss. I don't think when this match was announced last week and they tried to make it seem like it was a big deal, I don't think anybody could have ever thought that this would be any good. And if you thought it wasn't going to be any good, you were correct because it wasn't any good. They just did stuff. They had just doing moves. Sasha Banks just there. Becky Lynch is on commentary. Becky Lynch was great on commentary. Really, really good. And for the 2 seconds that she was on, at least, until she was standing on the table, just pointing at Sasha Banks. And they just did a match. They had a horrible finish. Sasha Banks kicks her in the knee and rolls her up. A weak-looking roll-up. It doesn't even look like like one of those 24/7 goofy roll-ups, where it's just like, oh yeah, anybody could kick out, but because it's a joke, we get it. We're in on the joke. No one kicks out of the roll-up on the 24/7 title. This one, it was just like, it just looked bad. Alexa Bliss, Sasha Banks have zero chemistry. Alexa Bliss, honestly, in singles matches is hardly ever that good, and Sasha Banks, unless she's in there with somebody really good, isn't good at carrying light workers. That's for sure. And they just had a bad match, and that's all there is to it. The post-match brawl was really well done. I will say that Becky Lynch and Sasha Banks did have a good little brawl. Sasha Banks quickly escaped her, and Becky Lynch cut one of her money promos to finish up the build to Hell in a Cell. So that's really good. This Sunday, Retribution is coming around. You can't run away. The whole thing. Basically, the entire reason that the Hell in a Cell exists is to keep people in the ring, and Sasha Banks keeps running away from her. It's just a simple build. Simple. That always works best. Whenever they do things simply in wrestling, it works best. If you start having Bobby Lashley come back and making out with a guy's wife and thinking that that's going to build a really great heated feud, that's stupid. That's not simple. It's complicated. It's dumb. It makes no sense, especially when they cancel out half the story. Oh, wait, I'm going off on the stupid Rusev thing again. I gotta get off that because it's still bad. It's still bad. Okay. Quick hits. Robert Roode and Dolph Ziggler versus Heavy Machinery. Oh my God. I absolutely love everything about Otis. I wish that I could just take a little of the personality that he just oozes out and just put it into some key members of the main event roster of WWE, because it would make a world of difference. This guy is, everything he does is just great. So much fun to watch. You talk about like a great comedy act, but something that can actually go a little further than a comedy act. You're looking at Heavy Machinery here. Tucker has great athleticism. This guy is a huge dude. I've seen him in person a couple times. I've seen him wrestle. This guy is a big dude, and he can go in the ring. Really, really go in the ring. It's probably going to wind up being a look thing that kind of keeps him back, because he does kind of have that, like, fat guy strong look to him. But Otis, like, there's no doubt, there's no bones about it. He's not trying to be anything that he isn't. He is the, fat guy strong, but his charisma is on another level. So Tucker's probably the better one in the ring that can really truly go, but he doesn't have the charisma that Otis has, or really that unique look. And Otis is just so great. He was doing this thing where Bobby Roode chopped him, and then he started like gyrating and like humping the air. It was just hilarious. The Caterpillar, people lost their minds for the Caterpillar. It was just, everything about this match was so much fun. Then they wound up, the finish was actually really good too, because they were going for the compactor. Otis looked like he was going to put it away. Tags in Tucker. Tucker goes to do the compactor. Ziggler hits him with a zigzag out of nowhere, which was a really great move. They throw Otis out of the ring. They attack Tucker and give him the glorious DDT, and they retain the titles. So Robert Roode and Dolph Ziggler still your Raw Tag Team Champions. But man, Heavy Machinery again steps up in a really, really good match. A good situation for a young tag team, and they were just awesome in this. Really, like no disappointment whatsoever. Yeah, there it is. Oh my God, I don't want to say that I could watch that all day long, because that sounds just like incredibly weird and creepy, but that's like hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. And then here's that zigzag out of nowhere that was just awesome. Really, really good stuff. Really, really good. Ziggler and Roode are an unexpectedly pretty good tag team. But Heavy Machinery, if they're coming to Raw, they could be running the tag team division in a little while. And I think that there's way more than just the goofy act too. I think that the two of them could be unexpectedly a great tag team, kind of like in the vein of New Day and the Usos and guys like that. Guys that will have consistently good matches constantly. I am kind of interested to see where they go with Otis and Tucker. All right, moving on. Let's see. Wow, I'm skipping over a lot because it's that horrible Saudi Arabia segment. Rusev. Okay, the Viking Raiders versus the OC. I like the Viking Raiders. I think they did enough squash matches with them to kind of make them look really impressive, but when they put them in front of a crowd and have an actual match with a team, well, granted, they've only really had matches against the OC. Those matches don't really do well, and I like the match. This match was a lot of fun tonight. They did a lot of big moves, things that would get a crowd excited, but this crowd just was not feeling this. I don't know if it's because it came after that awful Hogan and Flair segment where it was just, you're watching it and you just kind of feel sad rather than, excited. This just didn't connect on any level with this crowd in Phoenix tonight. And you have a guy like Ivar doing suicide dives and stuff like that. It's like, that's pretty cool. And yeah, granted, everybody does a suicide dive. There's the most bastardized move in wrestling by far is the suicide dive. So how impressive can it be if everybody does it? But Ivar doing it, that's kind of next level. Pretty cool. This didn't connect. I don't know why. Viking Raiders pick up the win. But this is kind of one of those things where, you hear some things, you hear it online, and you always have to take the things that you hear online with a grain of salt. It's like, could be true, could not be true. But then then you kind of like watch how it plays out on TV, and then you can always tell, based on the booking on TV whether it's true or not. We heard a rumor that Vince wasn't into the Viking Raiders, didn't get it, didn't like the look or whatever. They won tonight, but if that rumor is true, if it's true, that would be one of those things where Vince is like, well, goddamn it, they're not getting over, and we'll see what happens to the Viking Raiders in the coming weeks. Ricochet versus Cesaro. This was another good match, but lasted for like 3 minutes. They could have gone much longer. I would have much rather had canceled Lacey Evans versus Natalya and extend this match out than have this one be short and Natalya and Lacey Evans go long. Because this was like these two go together so well in the ring, the stuff that they can do. It was a ton of fun, and they packed a whole bunch of stuff into like 3 minutes of action. And Ricochet winds up getting the win with Rey Mysterio's springboard Hurricane Rana, even though he had a little somersault there before he hit the Hurricane Rana. Good stuff. Really, really good stuff. Ricochet is awesome. I'd like to see some direction for Ricochet because since the King of the Ring, well, really since losing the United States title, Ricochet's kind of just been floating around doing nothing. He was in the King of the Ring tournament, lost in the semifinals. Now it's like, what's next for Ricochet? You know, they did that stupid Mike Kanellis, Maria Kanellis, Ricochet's the daddy thing for like 2 seconds. I'd like to see a little direction for him. I'd like to see a little direction for Cesaro too, because Cesaro had the critically acclaimed match against Dragunov on the NXT UK Takeover show, and there was no follow up with him. There's nothing going on there. So, there are some things that need to be addressed with the two of those guys, and giving them a 3-minute match isn't really doing it. Firefly Funhouse segment. I hope everybody appreciates everything that's going on with Bray Wyatt right now. Even though the finish of the show tonight with Wyatt coming out and attacking Seth Rollins was obviously telegraphed from from the moment they announced the match, you knew that the Fiend was going to interfere in that match. But I hope that everybody can truly appreciate this character, these segments, these Firefly Funhouse segments, because they're next level, wrestling genius segments here. Bray Wyatt is doing things in segments and building a character the likes of which hasn't been done before. I would, and somebody come up with another character that is like this. I've never seen anything like this before in wrestling. Yeah, we had The Undertaker, obviously, built up through the years. His story was told over time. But to build a character with segments like this and have like these two different sides to him where he's like, this psychotic, demented Mr. Rogers, where he takes all of those things and that you would expect on a children's show. What the heck? Are you kidding me? Oh my God. I guess I need this. Well, Victoria just made her return to the show for like 2 seconds. I don't know if anybody noticed that. I guess I can't believe I had to do this, but yeah. Mercy was on the show, was on the Firefly Funhouse tonight, so I just got this tossed at my head. So Mercy's here. Okay, anyway, now I have to do a segment with this thing on my arm. But anyway, so Bray Wyatt takes like all those things that you look at from a children's show and you think that they're so innocuous and so innocent and turns them into something really dark. That's such a great way to give somebody the creeps, right? Yes. Okay, good. And then you have the Fiend character, which is like his inner demon. Like it just, I've never seen anything like it in wrestling, at least executed in this way. Yeah, everybody wanted Mercy the Buzzard. Here he is. It's like, is Mercy a he or a she? I don't know from the show. Like, can you tell me your gender? Okay, I guess it must be like that movie Pat, where are you a brother or a sister? Well, I'm an only child. Okay, anyway, if anybody ever saw the movie It's Pat, it was horrible, but that was like the one good line from it where he goes, well, I'm an only child. And he goes, no, are you a man or a woman? Oh, no. And Victoria definitely knows what I'm talking about right now. Jesus Christ. All right, this show, just like Raw with the Hogan and Flair segment is falling off the tracks really quickly. Anyway, I hope that everybody can appreciate what Bray Wyatt's doing, because obviously it's already getting to the point where people are starting to, the Fiend, it's becoming overexposed and this and that. And then people are going to ruin the Fiend for you. At some point, the Fiend will be ruined for you. I hope that you can appreciate everything that's going on right now, because it's something that we haven't seen the likes of maybe in all of professional wrestling before. This kind of character, this something this outside the box. I hope so. Andrew Elder, based on Waylon Mercy. Waylon Mercy was a really I started a couple years ago. I started watching all of the Raws, basically from 1993 on. And that Waylon Mercy gimmick, that was actually, that's a great point. It honestly, obviously not anywhere close to The Fiend or anywhere close to the success of The Fiend, but that Waylon Mercy character, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, go and look up Waylon Mercy on YouTube. Dan Spivey doing Waylon Mercy was really an interesting thing, way ahead of its time. But Dan Spivey at that time was just too broken down, couldn't really get the character going, at least physically wouldn't be able to do the character, and they kind of gave up on it really quickly. But that Waylon Mercy character had a lot of potential. But again, that was something that was way ahead of its time, way outside the box. Bray Wyatt is like Waylon Mercy times 100. Waylon Mercy on steroids, like really, really good stuff. Waylon Mercy obviously had potential, but this is next. What Bray Wyatt's doing is just next level stuff, and it's really, it's a close comparison, but not as close as you think it is. Okay, moving on. WWE United States Championship match: AJ Styles and Cedric Alexander. This was a great match. Really, really a great match. A lot of fun with AJ Styles and Cedric Alexander. But the finish was AJ Styles pinning Cedric Alexander clean with the Styles Clash. No interference, nothing, no tomfoolery, didn't choke him on the ropes, didn't rake the eyes, absolutely nothing. Just countered a lumbar check, hit the Styles Clash for the win. AJ Styles still United States champion. And I'd be totally fine with that if AJ Styles, in the last two times they had matches together, didn't so viciously lay out Cedric Alexander that it made him look like a complete and total nothing. So if you could just eliminate those two things, the Clash of Champions match where AJ Styles beat him clean and then destroyed him after the match, and then the next night on Raw when Styles destroyed him again, hit him with a Styles Clash off the second rope, if you could just eliminate that and then have him pin him clean here, that's okay. But with those two things, and now you have him pin him clean once again, it's I guess they fell out of love with Cedric Alexander. And that's a shame, because I was actually kind of getting into it. I'm always very cautious when they start pushing somebody out of the blue. And let's give this guy a chance. Mojo Rawley always goes through those things where he gets the once a year push where it'll last for a month. They'll do some vignettes with him and then nothing comes of it. I guess Cedric Alexander is going to be that guy. He's obviously a great wrestler. Charisma, obviously, his promo work needs a lot of work, but there's potential there for something good. And they've totally, absolutely made it extremely clear to you that don't bother getting into this guy because we're done with him for now. And tonight was kind of the final nail in the coffin, for me at least. So there's that. Lacey Evans versus Natalya. Okay, I'm going to put this out to the chat room because I have no clue why Lacey Evans and Natalya are feuding whatsoever. If anybody can tell me why they're feuding, I've been watching this show, obviously, for years and years, very, very closely. I recap everything, and I come on here with Victoria and talk about the show. I cannot, for the life of me, think of one instance for why Natalya and Lacey Evans would be feuding. I have no clue what happened, why Lacey Evans keeps beating people with sharpshooters, horrible-looking sharpshooters, by the way, and why this, and just why is this happening? Why is this on the screen? Why is this happening? I don't know. And so this was supposed to be the big, finally they're going to meet in the ring, even though we don't know why they're feuding. Now they're going to have a match. And the match sucked. Natalia, obviously, I have no idea why they even attempt to give her any type of character because she is so stiff, so wooden in the ring. She has absolutely no charisma whatsoever. I don't even think that she's that good of a wrestler because she just does things that look technical but really don't, in the context of the match, don't really fit in. They had Natalia try to show some emotion by calling her a bitch. You bitch. And then she goes for a sharpshooter, but Evans escapes. Evans then rakes the eyes and rolls her up with another horrible looking roll up, slow motion roll up. And then she grabs the tights, even though Natalia's wearing a bodysuit, so there's nothing to grab onto, and picks up the win. And then after the match, Lacey Evans lays her out with a women's right. So this feud must continue, obviously. I have no clue. Totally at a loss for words. No idea. No. Everybody in the chat room. No freaking idea, Mike. No idea. No idea at all. Yeah. No, I have no idea. Andrew Elder, me either. Also, Mike, like I said, how did she pull the tights today? It was just her putting her hand on her ass. It's so true. You're wearing a bodysuit. How can you pull the tights? My God. Like, and if you knew that was going to be the finish, Natalia, wear some tights so that she has something to pull on. You know, if you're such a great wrestler, think ahead. You know, like, these are things that, like, that's the kind of quality control that would never have happened back in the day when you had people that, you know, were really, you know, living their characters and not just, oh, I'm going to be on the show tonight, so I'm going to fit in 15,000 different moves in a 3-minute match, and damn the finish, I'm just going to get all my stuff in, and then you actually miss, like, the actual crux of the whole genre is being able to tell a story, and if you're doing all that stuff, you're not really telling a story more than just making yourself look good. You kind of miss the whole point of professional wrestling, which then begs the question, are you really that good of a professional wrestler if you don't get what professional wrestling is all about? Well, I guess Natalia doesn't. I guess we'll wrap up the Raw review with Paul Heyman's awesome promo. They wanted Paul Heyman to address Brock Lesnar's actions. Apparently, they had, you know, they're trying to put, you know, like, this is where they kind of get goofy, where they say, like, you know, like, when they had Michael Cole, I'll never forget when they had Michael Cole take an F5 from Brock Lesnar, and they said that he broke his cervix. And I was like, oh, cervix. Isn't that like a female body part? Because I've been hearing the word cervix a lot throughout pregnancy and all that stuff, but apparently it's something in your neck as well. There's something close to that name in your neck. And it's just like, well, why can't they just say that Michael Cole's just really hurt? Why did he have to break his cervix? Even though I totally believe that Michael Cole probably does have a cervix. Like tonight, like, it's not enough for him to attack Dominic Mysterio. Now Brock Lesnar has to be being, you know, questioned by the authorities for a criminal act. It's like, really? Like, the guy's trained to be a wrestler. Like what's so criminal about what he did? He attacked him, yeah, but that's professional wrestling. Why is this any different than any other attack? I guess Lacey Evans, in that same vein, because she attacked Natalia after the match with a woman's right, should be questioned by the authorities for some criminal act, right? But that's where they get goofy. But anyway, Paul Heyman pulled it all together with one of his regular money promos to set up the biggest event of the week, which is Friday Night SmackDown. Not Hell in a Cell. For WWE at least, the biggest event obviously is the beginning of their 5-year, $1 billion deal with Fox. Friday Night SmackDown, building up that show is the most important thing. Second most important show to build up, NXT, not Hell in a Cell by far. It's got to be NXT because they really, really want to beat AEW, or at the very least, siphon off enough of the people that would watch their show and have them watch NXT instead. So even if NXT loses in the ratings, they will have at least stolen some fans that would have watched AEW if they were unopposed. So that's what they're living on right now. Kind of curious. I'll talk about AEW and NXT momentarily. But Paul Heyman brought it all together. Apologize, and he did one of those things where he's talking fast, you know, making it seem like there's a lot of urgency there. Paul Heyman is just awesome in what he does. Apologizes to the Mysterios, says you can blame Vince McMahon for allowing him to schedule Lesnar on the Raw season premiere when you know Lesnar is in fight mode. There's a lot of wannabe tough guys in WWE and outside of WWE. Not one of them can do a damn thing about what Lesnar did tonight and will do this Friday on the SmackDown premiere on Fox to Kofi Kingston. Kingston can thank God every night for the power of positivity, but the devil thanks Heyman for lining up the victims for Lesnar. This is not a prediction, it's a spoiler. Lesnar will be the new WWE champion. And I have to say, I absolutely think that Brock Lesnar is beating Kofi Kingston this Friday. There's nothing close. There's nothing close. Kingston doesn't even have an opponent lined up for Hell in a Cell if he survives this match. So that's it. I think Lesnar's gonna be taking that title, and because the deal is for $1 billion, I think Lesnar will appear much more often on SmackDown than he has throughout any of his tenure since he came back to WWE. So we'll see what happens. Good stuff. Overall, obviously there were some issues on Raw tonight. The opening segment was probably one of the more well-done opening segments I've seen on the show in a long, long time. Main event stunk, but I love the heavy machinery match. I really liked Cedric Alexander and AJ Styles, even though the finish was questionable. Other than that, this was just another show with just some different voices and a different stage and some pyro, I guess. But season premiere, something to get excited about. I don't know if this was the show that was going to do it for you. Let's see what Twitter thinks. And people in the chat room, give me your thumbs up or thumbs down. I'm going to be talking about NXT and AEW momentarily here, and my kind of just what I expect to happen and what I'm a little worried about happening. I'm going to show the Twitter poll real quick before I do that. And the Twitter poll is 60% thumbs down with a 40% thumbs up. Daniel Shell commented, I missed thumbs in the middle. Please don't give thumbs in the middle in the chat room tonight. Please just do your thing, man. Okay. I have to say, I do agree. Thumbs down. Nafi Sadat, thumbs down. Randy M, it's such good shit. Victoria hates Pyro. I didn't know that. She didn't say that to me. The thumbs in the middle, 69%. Oh my God. Last week, our show, the final the final number on the poll for last week's show, which was Victoria's last show for a little while. Look it up. It was 69%. 69% thumbs up. Unbelievable. I cannot believe that that's what happened. I cannot believe. Oh, Victoria's claiming that maybe she said it and I wasn't listening, but she's claiming that she did tell me that she hates Pyro. Oh, it's fire and it's loud. Gold Steel X gives it a thumbs down. Thumbs down. Andrew Elder, especially the commentary team, was not a fan. Quentin Walters, thumbs down. Billy Hefner, way down. Open was epic, but that's it. I'm still waiting for Victoria to give me a thumbs down or what. Jeez, come on now. Come on. No thumbs up or down from me. Oh, so Michonne Walls is giving a thumbs in the middle. I guess that's what that sounds like to me. Okay. So, obviously, this is one of the biggest weeks in professional wrestling. For my money, Victoria finally gives a thumbs down, by the way, to the show. For my money, in my opinion, I've been with this website for 11 and a half years, watching closely everything that's been going on, and I've been following wrestling for a lot longer than that. I think you know that, I know my stuff. I know my stuff. I cannot recall a week in professional wrestling with this much excitement, with this much anticipation since WWF bought WCW way back in 2001. I can't think of a more consequential week in professional wrestling than that week, because that week WWF purchased WCW, announced it on the Raw. Shane McMahon appeared on the last episode of Nitro that same night, and then that very Sunday was WrestleMania 17, which is one of the best WrestleManias of all time. This is right there with it. AEW, I know a lot of people, including me, have kind of said that they've lost some momentum along the way since May. But you know what? It's here. It's this week. I am very excited for AEW. I'm excited to see what they can do. Um, People are obviously geared up for it. Obviously, the other reason why they're not the only reason why this week is big. Yeah, it's big that there's at least some sort of competition, for WWE, something to make them up their game. At least on Wednesday night, like the NXT show is absolutely stacked to the max on Wednesday. It's like, honestly, it's like I don't want to watch AEW because I really want to see what NXT is doing, but I am going to watch AEW because AEW needs people to watch it. DVR NXT. Do not watch if you really care about AEW and seeing some competition. DVR NXT. Do not watch NXT live. Watch AEW live. You want them to have the ratings. You want to have something where they are above something, something where they can, hang their hat on. If you want them to succeed, you got to watch. Daniel Shell saying Total Divas over AEW, but they actually moved Total Divas to Tuesday. Initially, I think it was going to hit AEW a little bit, but I actually probably not. Anyway, watch AEW for sure. A lot of people saying that they lost some momentum. I don't think so. Obviously it's hard to maintain that much momentum. From May, not doing television and, you only have a few shows and you're doing your YouTube show that not a lot of people watch. Hard to maintain that excitement when you're just not present all the time. But I'm very excited. I'm very interested to see what that number is going to be on Thursday with no real, television to build up to. They had All Out in August, but a month in wrestling is a long time. It's a long time for wrestling fans, especially when there's so much content out there now. I'm very, very interested to see if they can, keep those people interested and capture them. Really like the really, really important number is going to be week 2 because that'll be the real number. You'll get the big, curiosity rating on the first night. It's going to be the week after. That's really, really interesting. We'll see where AEW stands. Now, AEW has a lot on their plate. They have a ton of things that they hope to accomplish. Number one, they're going to be instituting a whole ranking system with points and stuff like that, where they're going to make wins and losses matter. Okay, because that was like a big thing. We have to counter WWE. He says wins and losses don't matter, so we have to make them matter. Okay, fine. You want to do that? That's okay. But if you're going to take a genre that people have been watching, one company do it for the last almost 20 years since WCW was bought, and maybe for a little time TNA was a little something, but for the most part it's just been WWE on the mainstream. The one that the company that people know the most is WWE, and they've been doing it one way. So not only now do you have to introduce all of your new stars and get people to kind of understand why they should watch these people and care about them. You have to put over your stars first, obviously, but now they're also putting on their plate that they have to introduce like a different way of looking at wrestling, where the wins and losses matter. They're going to have to institute a point system to kind of give it like a more sports feel. That's a lot of stuff to tackle. On a premiere show, and even to build up through the weeks. You kind of want to hit them. I would institute the point system maybe after their November pay-per-view and say, well, this is what we're doing now, but just kind of really what they need to do is kind of put their stars over first. Get people to care about your product first, and then worry and concern yourself with, kind of changing the way wrestling is done, kind of instituting a new way of looking at professional wrestling. That's number one. Number two, I'm really, really worried about it's going to be a show of pot shots, taken at NXT, kind of like, underhand comments. The last thing you want to be looked at is as the little kid on the schoolyard, trying to just, poke at the bigger kid. It looks Bush League. It sounds Bush League. I really, really hated it when they did it at Double or Nothing. A lot of people popped for the Triple H throne thing, where Cody destroyed it. A lot of people popped for Adam Page coming out on Hunter Horse Helmsley on a horse. That's a play on Triple H's name, and Cody coming out in the old Hunter Hearst Helmsley robes. That stuff, yeah, maybe that's going to pop your Being the Elite audience. But if you're going to try to market it to a mainstream crowd, you have to drop this infatuation with trying to pop the mouth breathers of the genre. Because right now you have that market cornered. You have those kids that, are just, wrestling. Oh, it's art, and it's got to be violent, and it's got to da 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 da. Like, you got those kids. You got them already. Guess what? There's not enough of them. It seems like there's a lot of them, because when you're online and you just see a couple of them in large quantities, because they're the ones that dominate the conversation, but there's not a lot of them. They're not enough to keep you afloat in the ratings and make TNT, think that they made a good investment. There's not enough of them to do it. And honestly, if the second that Brian Alvarez and Dave Meltzer turn on you and say something about, oh, I didn't like AEW doing this, then those mouth breathers are going to turn on you anyway. You need to market this company towards a mainstream audience. And I heard a quote from Cody Rhodes today that disturbed me immensely. And if this is like an actual initiative, and I'm going to explain the quote in a second. If this is an actual initiative in the company, or was even thought of as being an initiative in the company for a second, this is a real problem, because you are losing sight on what on what the actual goal of this company is, or what it's supposed to be, which is an alternative to WWE. It's not supposed to be, a Club Med for the virgin wrestling fan. It's not supposed to be that. It's supposed to be, you're on TV. What are you on TV for? Because you want to bring people back to wrestling, and you want to take some of those people that are lapsed WCW fans that just stopped watching wrestling. People that haven't watched wrestling in 20 years. You want to kind of bring them back and get them excited about wrestling again. You don't, like going for the mouth breathers is definitely not the way to do that. It's just going to look bad. So the quote from Cody Rhodes was, and I get it was at a Comic-Con, it was all that stuff. He was talking about the chair shots to the head that he did at Fyter Fest, where they claim they gimmicked the chair, and the lip of the chair caught Cody in the back of the head and busted him wide open. And when me and Victoria did the Wrestleview Live talking about that show, I harped and harped on how stupid and reckless it is to be doing chair shots, because it's okay, fine. So you do one chair shot in AEW, but a lot of these smaller independent companies, they follow whatever WWE and whatever the big companies are doing. It's a bad precedent to set for those companies, because then they'll go over the edge doing chair shots to the head. And yeah, I get it. There's a lot of stupid hardcore wrestling out there, that shortening people's lives and CTE and all that stuff, but it's a real thing. It's not something to be messed with. Anyway, I don't want to get into a whole tangent about that crap, but Cody said, oh, we wanted to take chair shots back for wrestling. We wanted to reclaim chair shots. Reclaim chair shots. And then he goes, oh, nobody says when they watch Captain America that when he hits him in the head with the shield, no one shouts concussion or CTE. So why couldn't we do chair shots? And then he goes, yeah. But at the end of the interview, he goes, yeah, the chair shot went bad, and maybe that's the last chair shot that had you seen AEW. There's a big difference between Captain America, a fake movie character with professional stunt people, CGI, camera angles, a whole plethora of different tricks that they can use to make it look like someone's actually hitting someone with a metal shield when they're really not, and a professional wrestler taking a steel chair to the head. There's a huge difference between the two. One is movie magic, and the other one is some guy getting hit in the head with a steel chair when CTE and concussions are a real thing. So yeah, no one shouts concussion when you see Captain America hit somebody in the head with a shield, because everybody knows, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, it's just a movie, and no one is leaving that movie with, no stuntman is leaving that scene with a concussion or CTE. But anytime you swing a chair, gimmicked or not, and look what happened to Cody, it just took one, and he was busted open, needed a whole bunch of staples to close up his head. That's reckless. That is just stupid. And for them to think their big idea, we're going to take concussion, we're going to take chair shots back for wrestling. What audience is that really appeasing? What audience, other than those losers that say, oh, WWE is playing it too safe because they don't want to do chair shots to the head? It's like, yeah, they don't want to do chair shots to the head anymore because they actually care about their guys. Yeah, maybe years ago it was a different story. It's a different company. It's the Wild West. Wrestling up until a few years ago really was the Wild West until the whole Chris Benoit thing happened, and you came to terms with the real collateral damage of chair shots to the head and a whole bunch of other things. Wrestling with concussions and all that stuff. CTE is a real thing, and it's shortened so many lives. Look at what it's done to players, to football players. Look what it's done to hockey players. It's not just professional wrestling, you dolt, you idiot. It's someone's life, okay? And if you want to appease Mr. Virgin sitting in his bedroom watching your show on Fight TV or whatever, and take your chair shots back, you're doing it for the wrong reason. You don't care about your guys. You care about getting some loser, getting his Cheeto stained dollars. That's what you care about. You're not a wrestler friendly company. You're a joke. If that really was an initiative, and if you really are planning on doing chair shots to the head again, you're a joke. And that stuff like that is going to really, really hurt them. Really hurt them. There's no room for it in wrestling anymore. There's no room for a guy to have his life shortened from CTE or put his family in danger from CTE, because that is a real thing too. It's not just Chris Benoit that's killed his family before. Other football players have abused their significant others. Some have even killed. Okay, so it's not a joke. It's nothing that needs to be reclaimed. It's nothing that needs to be brought back. You're a joke if you're an executive vice president in that company and you thought that bringing back chair shots to the head was going to be an initiative and something that needs to be reclaimed in wrestling. You're a joke. You don't know what you're doing. You shouldn't be running a company. So they need to clean up their act. That stuff needs to be tightened up. I can't even believe that he admitted that in public, but these are the things that really need to be tightened up. And if I'm Tony Khan, I'm a little concerned that someone that I'm trusting to run my company with my dollars or my dad's dollars, I'm a little concerned that they're saying stuff like that in public. So AEW, I hope nothing but the best from them. That got me worried. But I will be watching on Wednesday. And I'm very excited, regardless, to see what they can do. They are contributing to one of the biggest weeks in professional wrestling history. And I can't wait. I just can't wait to see what they can do. On that note, I'm going to close up the show for tonight. I had to get that off my chest because I saw that quote earlier today, and it's been sitting with me all day. I had to talk about it. And it's just topical anyway because it's leading up to the AEW show. So on that note, I am going to say goodbye to everybody tonight in the chat room. Thank you everybody for sticking with me, hanging out with me, talking with Victoria in the chat room. I see Victoria is very active in the chat room. Andrew Elder's here, Quentin Walters, Daniel Schell, Victoria, Billy Hefner, Kit Dyson, Randy M, Mashun Walls. I'm sure I missed a few people already, but I thank you all for hanging out with me. I don't know if I'll be here next week because you never know with the whole pregnancy thing. Victoria might pop at any second. She might pop as soon as I hang up on the show for tonight. We'll see. I'm planning on being here next week. The week after, obviously, I'll be disappeared, and we'll probably put the show on hiatus until November. But we at least might have one more week together. Until then, I am. Oh yeah. Also, don't forget, I'm also doing Hell in a Cell Wrestleview live this Sunday. So make sure you check that out. We'll be recapping Hell in a Cell. I don't think Doug's gonna be with me, so it might be another solo show, but we'll see. Maybe I'll have a special guest. You never know. Could be good old Mercy joining me on the Hell in a Cell show, especially if I think Hell in a Cell goes the way I think it's gonna go. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. All right. On that note, I'm Mike Tedesco. This is Mercy the Buzzard, and we'll see you later. Have a good week, everybody.